Today we're going to be looking at performing calculations in a table in Microsoft Word. We're going to show you how to perform addition within the table, adjust the number format, sort the table based on rows, deal with adding borders and shading to our table, and then we'll wrap up with converting our table to text, the opposite of what we did last time. We are going to need to open our file for this particular lesson, so we're going to go to Lesson 17. Specifically, we're going to turn in our book to page 235. On page 235, we're going to open up this doc file. Enable the editing of that file. Save this file, putting it in my Documents folder, and creating a dated folder for this particular item. Opening that dated folder, and finally adding my initials to this file. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see my work a little easier on the screen. Here in the table, we're going to click in this empty cell, this first table. Clicking on the cell, what we'd like to do is we would like to add these numbers up. Now obviously I could break out my calculator, do the addition, and then put that number, whatever it comes out to be, here in this particular cell. However, there's a much faster way, and that is we can let Microsoft Word do the calculations for us. To make this happen, we need to go to the Layout tab. Clicking on Layout, we will find the very last button that's on this tab is a button called Formula. Clicking on Formula, it will ask us to sum above. Well, sum means to add, and I want to add all the numbers that are above the place where my cursor was. So that's exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to click OK. And that will indeed sum all those numbers that were above it. Simple, right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a new row. As we take a look at this, we realized we've covered a lot of our expenses, but we did not cover our taxi ride. So we need to add a new row to our list here. So what I want to do is I want to click on the miscellaneous row. Clicking on miscellaneous, what I want to do is add in a row above that. So I'm going to click on Insert Above. I'm going to type in the amount I'm going to type in taxi, and now I just need to add the actual amount of the taxi, which is going to be $53.65. So I've typed that in. I'm going to go ahead and type in the $sign in front of that, just so that it's consistent with the other numbers. Once we added the 5365 into our list of numbers, this number down here did not change. If I right-click on this number, I can update or edit the field. If I want to click Update, it will perform the new calculation. However, the situation though is I want to, because this number is greater than 1,000, I want to make sure there's a comma that appears down here. Honestly, the easiest way to deal with this is simply to delete the number out, go back to Formula, and again I want to sum above, but I'm going to make one small change. I want to choose the number format. And if you click the drop down arrow, you'll see two number formats that are the ones that we commonly will use. The first one here will put in the comma with no decimal places. The second one puts in a comma with 2 decimal places. The third one, which is the one that we're actually going to use now that I'm looking at it, also includes the dollar sign. So we're going to include this one down here. It does 2 decimal places. What the parentheses mean is it will put negative numbers in parentheses. That's not an issue here, so we're going to go ahead and choose that particular format. I click OK. Now when it does the calculation, it will put the comma in place and have the dollar sign there as well. The next thing I want to do is I want to sort this list based on the values over in the last column. So in other words, I want the smallest number at the top and the largest number at the bottom. So what we're going to do is we are going to sort this table. While I can get to sort on the Home tab, the tab I was already on, the Layout tab, does also have that Sort button that we have used before. So I click on Sort, and I want to sort not by column 1, that's the names. I want to sort by column 2, and it'll automatically recognize that column 2 does have numbers in them. So I do want to sort in ascending order, so I'm going to put the smallest item on the top. I click OK. Now the miscellaneous amount goes on the top, followed by taxi. The last item, lodging, appears at the bottom, which is exactly what we want. Let's add a new row. At the top, I want to label these rows. So I'm going to click on miscellaneous, the top row of our table, and I'm going to insert a new row above that. I'm going to label these 2 items, these 2 columns. I'm going to label the first one expense, and I'm going to label the second row amount. Expense and amount. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a border around the outside. Now, you may say, but Mr. Miller, there already is a border. There's a line around the outside. Yes, there is, and that line does print, but they want to change to a different color border around the outside. The way we can do this is we're going to go to the Design tab. Clicking on Design allows us to change our border styles. I'm going to select the whole table. I'm going to click the Borders drop down. Now while I could click the outside border, that is what we're changing here, what I want to do is I want to apply a specific color, and I want to do a double border. So I'm going to come down to Borders and Shading to make this happen. In the Styles section, I'm going to scroll down until I find the double lined border. I'm going to choose the color, clicking the drop down on the color option. We're going to choose red for the color. And we're going to change the width as well, make them just a little bit thicker. So I'm going to change them to 3/4 of a point. Now if you look at the preview, you will see that it's putting the border everywhere. That's not where I want it to go. What I want it to do is I want it to go just on the outside. So I'm going to click on the box over here. Alternatively, what I could have done is I could have unchecked these middle items here and here, and that will clear the borders from those middle rows. I click OK, and I now see the double border appearing around the outside of my table. Coming down to my second table, what I want to do is I want to change the color of the top row. So I'm going to select just that top row. I selected the cells. Alternatively, I could have clicked to the left of the table and selected that entire row. And what I want to do is I want to apply a shading to these cells. Now, shading can be done on the Home tab. It's this paint bucket right here. If I am on the layout, the design tab already, or over in the table tools in general, I can also do shading right here on this design tab. So I'm going to click on this drop down arrow for shading. The color that they wish to do is they wish to do an orange color. So I'm going to come down here and find the orange shading color. And that gives me the orange top row. Now I want to copy this entire table, so I'm going to select this entire table. I'm going to copy it. If you want to right click and do a copy, that works. I'm going to go ahead and do Home, Copy. Click underneath the table, and now I'm going to paste this table in so I have two instances of the same table. Before we move on and deal with this last table, I'm going to come back up to the second table here. We're going to add these numbers up. In this lesson, one of the things that we wanted to do was to calculate within our table, so we're going to add these numbers up. What ribbon tab had that formulas button? If you said layout, that's correct. On the layout tab, we're going to click formula. Notice that this time it says sum left. Remember what it said last time. It said sum above. Word has the ability to sense where the numbers are, and so it will take a guess as to whether it should be summing left or above. You do need to be careful because sometimes it guesses wrong and you may need to type in the correct amount. I'm going to click OK. That will sum up those particular items for that table. I want to do the same thing for this last table. We're going to calculate the formula, sum left, click OK so that it also has that same number in there. The last thing we're going to do in this particular lesson is I do want to convert this table to a tabbed list. Occasionally, you may want your text to be in a tabbed list instead of a table. And so what we can do is we can convert it from one to the other. So I've selected my entire third table. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find on my layout tab, I'm going to find this button that says convert to text. When I click on convert to text, it's asking me what should be separating the columns. When it says separate text with, this is what separates the columns. What's going to be between Monday and Tuesday? We want a tab to appear between. Just as a note, I have seen on the certification exam where you've had to separate with paragraph marks or with commas. The question will tell you if it wants that. The most common thing you're going to separate with, though, is tabs. I click OK. I now have got a tabbed list, and if your show hide is on, you should see this, a tabbed list with the same information as our table above. I'm going to save this file and close it. That does wrap up this particular lesson of converting tables to text, as well as calculating cell values. In this lesson, we showed you how to add cells in a table, both in a row and a column. We also talked about adjusting the number format when we're doing that calculation. We sorted our rows. We showed you how to add cell borders and shading to our tables. And then finally, we wrapped up by converting our table to text. Most all of this stuff is done using the Layout tab or the Design tab of Table Tools.